Okay, 3, 2, 1 podcast.
What's up, gamers?
Oh, wait. Tanner already did his.
Tanner already took his sip, but we're going for it.
What are we drinking today, Tanner?
Mountain Dew.
Voodoo.
Voodoo.
Voodoo. It's the 2021 brew.
All right, who can guess what it tastes like first?
I already have my theory, so I want to hear what you guys think.
Ooh. I see what you're saying.
Tastes
It
like
said
Jolly Rancher.
That it's almost like Skittles.
It straight up tastes like
It tastes
berry
like
Skittles.
Skittles.
It's
Yeah,
like
you're
berry
right.
Skittles.
You're right.
You know the purple packs? You ever? Because when you get Halloween Skittles,
Of course, I
packs,
get the purple pack.
You just rip them open and do a shot of Skittles, right?
Yeah.
Straight up tastes like a shot of berry Skittles.
It does. You're right.
It tastes like what you want it to taste like when you're a kid and you get the Skittles and you put it in Sprite to try to make it taste like other fruits. That's what this tastes like. This is what I wanted that to taste like.
Did anybody else do that, or is that just us? Do I remember doing
I
that?
don't even remember doing this.
Yeah, we'd like.
But I believe I tried it.
We'd like go through a bag of Skittles and take out all of the yellow and greens and then put them all in water to try and make it taste like Sprite.
so.
Does not work. It literally, all it does is take the coloring out.
So
of
here's
it.
the
So it's
question:
just-
do you think if we did it with, carbonated water,
no,
it might work?
110% no.
Because
Carbonation was not the problem.
But the carbonation might help dissolve the Skittle.
maybe.
I think the problem
That's
is
the only
the
thought
Skittle
process.
is designed to be mixing with moisture in your mouth, which causes the flavor. It just does not retain in a giant
So
cup,
if you
know?
crushed it first
maybe
and then put it
we
in,
definitely tried that. Too.
maybe did we? I don't remember.
110%. But
I remember we put
again,
popcorn in
water.
cups too. I don't know why. I just used to put popcorn in a cup just to watch it like shrivel.
The only thing about soda weird I remember doing as a kid is I remember one time purposefully watering down a cup of Sprite for like 3 days to keep the flavor, thinking it was great. I remember this. I was probably like 6.
Mom was probably just like, "Ew, what is wrong with you?"
Because I remember
kids?"
I like hadn't finished it overnight, and then the ice.
So it's already
the i-
flat.
So the ice that was in it melted. I remember like, wait, I've got more liquid than I had before. So then I added water to it for. It might have only been 1 day, but in my brain it felt
Infinite
like
soda.
3 days. Yeah, I thought I had figured everything out.
That's so funny.
There's a good
Found
chance
it.
at some point I was just drinking like water sneezed on by Sprite, but
Like people talk about LaCroix
Yeah,
flavors.
LaCroix.
Yeah, somebody walked
Like
past
low
with a
battery
strawberry.
mint.
So, yeah.
Somebody walked past with a strawberry when we bought them.
Yeah,
Yeah, like
that's
that.
how they describe the flavors. Somebody walked past with a strawberry.
sneezed on by a lemon.
Yeah, really.
That's my favorite.
Anyways, so yeah, we have like one topic that we wanted to talk about today.
Let's just disclose. We've definitely been sitting here for 2 hours talking about all kinds of
Or
nerdy
at
stuff.
least, what time
And
is
should have
it?
recorded things.
We got here at about 6 and it's now 8, so
Yeah.
about 2 hours
Yeah.
we've spent talking.
So we decided we should
Yeah.
probably start recording things.
At least one of those hours was about Lord of the Rings. So
Yeah, a solid hour for sure.
Yeah. Definitely.
yeah,
All right, so here's what we're starting with, and we'll just see where the conversation takes us.
Yeah.
Jared finally finished The Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah, I did.
Tanner has not played it.
I'm not.
Tanner will not play it
Probably not.
because of extenuating circumstances, but he has seen a playthrough of it like a year ago.
Yes.
So he's the rustiest. I've played it twice. I played it 4 or 5 months ago. I watched a playthrough 2 months ago. Jared played it like...
I just finished it like 3 or 4 weeks ago at the
Yeah.
most. So
So what did you think, Jared?
yeah, and I guess we should start by saying we are definitely going to talk about this for a little bit, but we'll go other places as well. Just because there obviously it's sorry.
Are you bleeding?
Oh my gosh, yeah. What the heck?
Here.
That's
Oh,
weird.
Thanks. Yeah, I just started. It's not.
He's dying! No,
It's not out of my face or anything. It's just my arm.
Yeah, that's weird that your arm is just randomly.
the heck?
You got like
You have a
leukemia
bug
or
bite?
something. What's
You-
going on?
Maybe I had a bug bite I just scratched.
All right,
or
well,
something. I
anyways,
don't know.
moving on from
Anyways.
that.
Cool.
You know what we should start with? Golf.
You know what we should start with? Golf. Yes.
Wait, no, you know what we
Um,
actually need to start with? Spoilers.
Oh, yeah.
True.
Now go ahead.
This, I mean, hey, like we said before, if you're like me a month ago and actively avoiding this game or any games we talk about ever, then turn off the podcast because we're going to give spoilers.
Yeah.
But in this case, yes, we're definitely going to talk about some spoilery things that will ruin your experience if you're wanting to do it yourself. So
So golf.
golf.
This, by the way.
So golf. Yeah, definitely. I knew that happened. I want to be clear. I knew that Joel died in The Last of Us 2.
Okay.
I did know that. I had no clue when you said golf that you were referring to the fact that he had a, like a 5-iron shoved in the side of his skull. I had no clue about that. So
Yeah, he got. Also, this is like a really violent video game, so like.
Things gonna get grim for a little bit here.
Yeah, we're gonna obviously not get super disgusting, and you're not gonna see anything. But like, yeah,
I'm sorry. Like,
if you're like extremely, blood is already happening.
yeah, I guess it's true. We got all the
Jared's already bleeding.
We got the wusses out of the way right in the first couple minutes.
So if you're extremely squeamish, there's a fair warning.
There's some dark stuff we're gonna talk about.
Yeah, like an hour into the the game, basically an hour and a half ish.
Not even if you're maybe 40 minutes.
The main character of the last game, who is arguably one of the most beloved video game characters of the last decade, gets his skull bashed in with a golf club after getting shot with a shotgun in the knee.
Oh,
so,
yeah, and that was...
Which was also disgusting. So, yeah, it was super horrible, super shocking, very controversial.
Yeah.
But
anyway.
I thought it was a great decision. What'd you think?
Let's go with here. Let's give us just your first impression thoughts, and then let's follow up questions.
Yeah,
after
no,
that.
and I think that's a great place to start. So hold on to that because I'll forget that question.
Yes.
My first impression of the game is 120-30% what we said last time. The Last of Us Part 2. There's a reason it's called Part 2. It is a continuation of the same theme and story of the first game.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because you played the two games back to back.
Back to back. I played the first game, we did the podcast, and I started it that night.
The second one.
The second one.
Yeah.
Well, I finished the game, and then, yes, about a week later we did the podcast, and then I started it. So, yes, very close together, finished and started, and very much so ran right into
and it's
each
hard
other.
to separate them now.
Very,
right?
very hard to separate
Right.
them.
That was
Especially
the
the
experience.
themes
Yeah.
and the things that really The Last of Us taught me. It's impossible to not
That was
talk
the
about what
experience I
happened
had the
first.
last time I played, where I did them back to back.
Yeah, and that's why I was like, I feel like I barely said anything in the last one, because even though I haven't even played the second one, just like knowing what it's about,
So hard to
it was
talk
like,
about.
it was like, how do I even talk about this without talking about the second one? Like, it's so hard to give thoughts about, like we spent a lot of time talking about the end of the first game, which again, it's kind of gruesome. The main character that you play as, Joel, tears through the hospital
Leaves
looking
nobody
for
alive.
his surrogate daughter, and kills a lot of people, including like surgeons who are trying to save the world. So it's like super morally gray.
Yeah.
Actually, it's probably and this game I think kind of, well, I don't think this game really was trying to say anything necessarily, but we'll get to that later. But it was bad, and immediately you see the consequences of that decision.
Immediately.
Literally immediately in this game, come back to bite him in the butt, because you find out later, Abby, who's the girl that kills him, has a lot of really valid reasons to come and look for Joel and kill him.
Exactly. Her revenge, and obviously we can talk more about this later, but her revenge was in a way justified. Like,
Oh, completely.
she brought him to an end that was fitting, very much so.
And it was
felt like an eye
yeah.
for an eye, almost not enough.
Yeah. Well, and justified. Murder is murder. But
Yeah, no, I want to make clear here: we're not making any moral statements about how we actually feel about real life. But
it was understandable.
It was understandable.
And also, but that's the other thing is I don't know, if you're in a world where there isn't justice,
Nope.
there isn't society anymore, everybody's living on their own, so you kind of have to make your own justice. So she's judge, jury, and executioner. Something
I also
horrible
think
happens
what's
to her.
very interesting is the beginning of the game. So Abby, before this game, has gone through the exact same thing Ellie goes through in this game.
Yes.
The end of Abby's journey of revenge is the beginning of Ellie's. Which I think is very fascinating.
And just to say, her father was the lead surgeon that was going to be responsible for the cure.
I have shot him in the head every time I played the first game.
He is the one, and I want to be clear, we talked about this in the last podcast, where I shot the people and I tried to pick up Ellie and it wouldn't let me till I finished one of them off. That was him.
Yeah.
By the way, now playing the game.
You
you're
tried
like,
to
oh.
walk past the dude. Wait. Hang on.
I shot
You
him.
tried to walk past the dude holding a knife up to you?
No. I shot him and then moved on to the other two and did the kill shot, and then I went back. And
Oh,
noticed
he was
the
still
one.
alive.
He was the one that I shot in the gut and was
I
bleeding out on the
misunderstood
floor.
all of that. I thought it was one of the
Oh,
other
okay.
people. I'm like, you don't have to kill them. Okay,
No,
all right.
I had not killed him.
Okay.
The one shot I made, I thought I'd
So
done
you
the
just
work.
left
and
him
I-
in agony for like 20 seconds before you
Yeah,
realized what was going
which-
on. Okay.
In a way, like
But that's why it's so good. Is like
I know.
in retrospect, you're like still knowing, okay, this guy's a good guy, and he saves zebras that are trapped in barbed wire, and he's a surgeon that's just trying to save the world, so he doesn't deserve this. But at the same time, he's about to go kill your surrogate daughter, so of course you're going to shoot him in the face.
So here's the thing. After replaying it after playing the second game, I should say,
yeah,
I still did not hesitate
Yeah,
at all.
yeah, and I mean that's
So
just like Joel says.
I don't know what that says about me. Let's move on.
So I guess what I was trying to say, what we're getting this is to my overall impressions, is they definitely run together. They definitely, like Scott had said, like it's about the same themes and everything. Overall, I think it did a really, really good job at finishing up, I think, what it was trying to say about grief and about how to cope with your loss and things like that, which the whole first game alluded to with his lost daughter and things we talked about. I think it really shows that, like, here's Joel's story about how he got over his grief, and now through the process of that caused more problems that now Abby has to come to terms with what she's done and how it's affected her and her family and her friends and stuff. And now at the same time you have Ellie going through the same thing, trying to finish out the job and get the revenge done. So
Okay,
all
hang
of
on.
it is about their
Hang on.
three storylines.
Please
of how-
elaborate on this, because this is a different take than I've heard from anybody else.
Oh, really?
Yes, keep going.
Okay.
I'm very interested.
So to break it down, Joel lost his
Break it down.
daughter. He lost his daughter, and through the whole process of the first game, you see him, like Tanner said,
Right.
he's her his
She
Ellie is her
becomes
daughter.
his surrogate.
Yeah,
Right.
she is the one that he looks to, and she is his
Ellie so
future.
bad.
She is his world, and he wants to cultivate a relationship with her for the rest of his life. Is really where they're left at the beginning of The Last of Us 2.
Right.
He wants to have a
Last of Us
relationship with her. Well, the beginning of The Last of Us 2.
Oh,
When
sorry.
they're living in Jackson, it's very clear that, like, they still have problems, they still have things to work out,
Flashbacks.
but they want to have each other, like, they want to be in each other's lives.
Yes.
They really do. Even though Ellie knows about the whole thing with Salt Lake, she knows that he made that decision to save her, and she has feelings about herself and what that means to her as her worth as a person, because she wanted to be worth more.
Wait.
blah,
What
blah,
part
blah.
are we referring to now? Ellie at 19 or Ellie right after they get back to Jackson?
Ellie, when she finds out about
Okay,
the
all right.
fact that
Okay, sorry,
he
yeah.
killed everybody in the
ahead.
hospital and all the fireflies are gone. Yes.
all right.
My
I wanna
point
make
is,
sure.
they want to have a relationship. And then and so he has really come to terms with the fact that he's lost his daughter because he has a new one and he's working on getting his life and her life together. And he had to go through a lot.
Right, no, I
to really
understand
get
that.
over his
I want to
daughter.
hear
Okay.
the Ellie part of the grief. I even understand
And then
it
you
for
have
the Abby,
Abby,
part.
exactly. And then you have Abby, who lost her father, hunted him down, spent years doing so, shows up on a silver platter, and she gets her revenge, right? Because they're like, oh, we're trying to find Joel. Hi, I'm Joel. And it's like, well, crap, he's the guy we're here
It's
for.
like, well, there's Joel.
There's Joel. That's the guy we're going to kill. That was really shocking. When she heard his name, there was that reaction. I was like, oh, crap, she's going to be the one to kill him. And then she was looking at them like, where have you been and everything?
And then there goes
he's
his
like,
kneecap.
yeah, and then he's like, hi, I'm Joel. And they all look at each other like, oh, you literally just marched him right in here. And yeah, kneecap gone.
Gross.
Very bad.
Okay, we don't need to get...
My
one of
point
those
is-
gruesome.
Yeah,
Now you have
it was
Ellie.
really traumatizing.
Abby has found her closure. And not only that, but through her story, which we'll talk about a little bit, like you play as her for a third of the game, maybe half of it.
It's half.
It's about half. You play as her, you get to see
Maybe
her
45,
not only
55.
get over her grief by killing Joel, but then also finding a little bit more of her humanity through helping the other people and realizing that difference.
I
right?
see what you're saying. I would... The way I thought about it is Abby did not overcome her grief by killing Joel.
She didn't.
She only overcame it by helping Lev.
Exactly. That's my point. Is she thought she finished the job, and then
Okay.
it was at that point where she had that revenge off of her mind that she had the ability to step back for a second and actually deal with the problem and realize that what they were doing as people was wrong, helped Lev, and that whole situation, I think, made her more human. Made
Absolutely.
her
Yeah.
really realize who she is and who she can continue to be. And then you have Ellie.
Sure.
And that's the part you wanted to hear about, is how I feel about Ellie's grief.
Yeah, I'm really curious about this one.
She loses Joel,
Well, yes, obviously.
and just like Abby, her first thought is revenge. And same thing with Tommy, right?
So would you say that... Sorry, before you get into this,
Mhm.
would you say Ellie's is about... Because you said it's about processing grief, which, yes,
Uh-huh.
I can see that, but what is... It's not a healthy way of processing grief.
110%.
No,
No,
so
no,
what
it's
is the
terrible.
conclusion to Ellie's processing grief story in your mind?
That's the tough thing. That's what I'm still juggling with and still
Okay.
thinking about.
All right, okay.
So,
Okay, all right.
It's very clear through the
No, I get
through
it.
the
I
games that
understand.
it's like, this is about grief and this is about how to deal with that, and it's about how to deal with mourning your loss. There's lots of things there, and then Ellie's really an enigma because she goes guns blazing. She wants to get Abby. She wants all of them dead. She has her hit list of Polaroids. Right? She takes out everybody that is meaningful to Abby. What?
It just sounded so funny.
Hit list of Polaroids.
You're right,
just
but it was
really
so
funny.
true.
I mean,
Sorry.
you're right. Yeah,
Sorry.
that was just
That's
good.
literally what it is.
No, you're absolutely right. That's what makes
And
it so
from
funny.
a game point of view, I found it so funny that it's like, oh, she's
Love
coming
is a
here to get them all. She
Polaroid.
kills the first person, and they're like, oh yeah. It's like she's bleeding out on the floor. She's like, oh, and here's everybody you need to kill. I have pictures of them. Go get them. Like, it's just kind of funny that she immediately, the first person she got, happens to have pictures of everybody she wanted to kill.
Okay,
Haha,
well,
video game,
outside of
whatever.
typical narrative conveniences.
Of course, that's all
Yeah.
I'm saying is I thought that was a funny convenience. But my point is, she is there to
Hit
not
list
only
of
get
Polaroids.
revenge on Abby, but that's going to be the title
She's
of
got
this
Reznov
podcast.
in her
By the
head
way,
the entire game. Just like,
that's going to be a subtitle of this podcast. It's
Steiner.
All must die.
Abby.
All must die.
Abby. Mandy. Owen.
all must die.
Wield the club of iron.
Okay,
Okay.
so here's we could
Scott just got that. Anyways,
That was a good old Black Ops wield the fist of
skewer
iron.
the traitorous beast.
gosh,
Oh,
Okay.
jeez.
that's a good game. We should play that again.
Go play
Anyways.
Black Ops.
Oh,
That's a good
goodness.
game.
Gary
not
Oldman.
not the new Call of Duty Black Ops. I should point out Call of Duty Black Ops like the first one.
Oh, gee.
What are the the numbers Mason Black Ops? Okay.
2010.
Mason.
Where I was going
Anyways.
was here she is now dealing with her grief, and she initially goes to revenge, just like in a way all three of them really did. Like Joel became not so great of a person because of the society he hates that has been
I
pushed
wouldn't
upon
say
him.
Joel went for revenge.
He wasn't. He didn't have.
Tommy
anybody's-
went for revenge.
Tommy went for revenge.
Because he blew that dude's head right off.
Yes,
True.
absolutely. But my point is, all of them had their way of dealing with it, and all of their initial reaction made them not so pretty a person.
Sure.
Well, I think it'd be fair to say Joel's initial response isn't revenge because, yeah, the guy that kills his
Joel's
daughter
initial
dies
response is
immediately.
dies.
shutting himself
But it
off
is
to everything.
violence.
Yes, no, he turns to violence.
He
and
turns extremely
He hates
violent.
the way that the world has turned
I would
because there's
say-
no good in the world.
I would
left.
say Joel's.
Yes.
I would say Joel's reaction was turning himself off.
Yes.
Is the best way.
Yeah,
I
that's a
can
good
think
way to
of
put it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because he turned to violence, but you think about it, he did some terrible things and it didn't bother him.
Yes.
Like he just kind of turned himself off.
Yeah,
I
he
feel
shut
like.
down completely. Because,
Yeah.
like Jared said, there was no good left
There
anymore.
was no
so
good
he's
left
just
in the world to him.
Going
so
through the motions, so he's not thinking about anything.
He wasn't wanting to live. He was looking to survive.
Yeah.
Is all he was at that point.
Yeah.
And so my point is, all of them did that though. All of them initially turned to revenge, and then all of them, Joel had his resolution and died in not so great circumstances. But in a way, I think he died knowing that he was only worried about Ellie right
Okay.
there at the end.
I need to say, Joel got what he deserved.
Yep.
Yeah,
Controversial.
controversial,
But
but
agreed.
yes. My
Objectively, he got what he deserved.
my one point that I'm trying to get
Yes.
to, and we can start asking questions and talk about this more, is that Ellie's version of grief was very different because everybody else kind of figured out who they were and figured out that, like, oh, I don't have to be this mean, nasty person anymore. And I don't think Ellie did.
He's leading perfectly into my
Like,
thoughts on the game.
and this is a really big point, and we'll talk about this. And I remember Scott told me to really pay attention to this when I was playing the game, and that was I really, really loved how I got to start playing guitar. Like in the game, it's like, oh, I just picked it up, and it's like strum. and it's like, and put the chords, and I'm like, this is so cool.
Oh, that
I'm
is
playing
a lot of
Take
fun.
On Me by Aha and freaking Last of Us 2, and I called my wife over. I was like, look. I was like, what are they? And she's like, why
Which-
are they singing
one
Take
of the
On Me?
most-
I'm like, that's a really
one of
good
the most
question.
beautiful moments in the game.
Exactly. And so, and then that keeps happening. There's a couple
Sorry.
times throughout the
That was the
game.
dog.
There's a couple times throughout the game where you can just pick up a guitar and play, and you play a different song.
Yeah,
And,
so it's a good thing.
and I was just thinking about it, and I was like, well, who taught her to play guitar? It's obvious. It's Joel who taught her.
Yes.
And
Well, we
so
see that.
it's clear at the beginning that that is something that she was using as a connection. And every single time you picked up the guitar to play it, there was always a flashback associated with it. To where you had a memory of
He's
Joel that
segueing
came
perfectly
up
for me.
that came up when you played the guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then at the very end of the game, I don't know if Tanner knows this or if he remembers, at the very end of the game,
I know this.
Ellie and we'll talk about this more a little bit later,
Super
but
sad,
Ellie
but-
loses some of her fingers. They get bit off.
Get
by
nom
Abby.
nommed
Frodo
off just
style.
like Gollum.
Frodo
Yep.
style. And then my instant thought when that happened was, oh my gosh, the guitar.
That was your
He
first
thought
thought?
of it.
My-
He thought of it. Yes.
My
Dude.
first thought was she just lost her, and it's her left hand. And I
So
was
proud
like,
of myself for saying just pay attention to the guitar.
well, I was already looking at it too before you said it. But yes, I was like, oh, cool. It appeals to her thoughts of Joel. She lost her fingers. And then what does she do at the very end of the game? She goes to pick up the pieces of her life. Her girlfriend and baby are gone. The only thing that's left there is some of her stuff. And what does she do? She picks up the guitar. She goes to play it, and she can't. Because she can't do
Can't
the chords.
touch the struts anymore.
And she
She's still
realizes
got the
that. You can
fingies.
literally watch it on her face. And I was like, oh, she's not going to be able to do this. And you start strumming, and you can see her trying and just looking at it and then just stopping and going, I can't do this. Because she's lost part of herself. And what does she do? She sets it on the windowsill, and she walks out. And that is how it ends.
So
It's so
okay.
sad.
Okay. So you missed one thing. Okay, finish your conclusion.
My,
and then I'll
my
get to what I was-
conclusion to my first thought here about all of this and about grief, what you were kind of asking about, is that everybody else dealt with their loss, and then they realized there was still something good. Like she had Lev, Joel had Ellie, and she had nothing. She had nothing left. No one left that was like, this is her appeal of she still has something good in her life. And that is what I'm still juggling with, is her story ends differently than the other two. The other two had resolution. The other two found something good to live for. The other two, had something. And she didn't.
He is setting me up. So
And
much.
that is
Because I've
what
talked to you about this.
that's what I've been
Probably.
wrapping my head around
Okay,
the whole
so-
time. Is like, maybe there's something I'm missing, or
So-
I don't know.
So okay, all right. Look,
I know you had
okay,
a question
look,
earlier.
look.
Hold on to that. Let's talk
Since
about that.
since the last time I played this game like 4 months ago, I've been having an existential crisis about this. So the one thing you're missing with the guitar that I think is the most important piece to what I think one of the messages behind The Last of Us Part 2 is, one I haven't heard talked about. The guitar is the first thing you ever see on the screen.
Yep.
When Joel was cleaning it and he's talking to
Yep.
Tommy about what he did.
About what he did in Salt Lake.
That conversation is so important because Joel says to Tommy,
I would do-
she needed her immunity to mean something. And Ellie brings that up again later in one of the flashbacks. She's like, my life would have meant something, and you took that from me.
Yep.
So, everything you said about the grief is very interesting. Something I hadn't thought about. I'm going to be thinking about this now. But I think the
Thanks for
purpose
that.
behind the game, behind both games, is about trying to find meaning in life. Because you think about Joel, really the conclusion of his story, having a reason to live a life again, was
Yeah.
Ellie. She gave his life meaning.
Yes.
Abby finds a way to give her life meaning and feel like her life really is worth something when she helps Lev. Right? And you have that moment where, like, Lev is like, those are your people killing all my people. She's like, you're my people. Right? Like, Abby has that definitive moment where you're like,
realizes.
this is what she's committing her life to.
Yep.
This is what's giving her meaning.
Especially since his sister just died.
Yes.
at the
So...
time. So it was
Yeah, it's very impactful. And to me, the thing with Ellie, because so you have Joel having that conversation, it's pretty heavy-handed on the imagery with him with the guitar talking about how she needed her immunity to mean something. And then every single time you have a flashback,
it's linked to a guitar.
Ellie, it starts with Ellie playing a guitar, and the song that Joel taught her, which you can only assume is the first song Joel taught her how to play. I think that's a pretty safe assumption. The song that he sang for her is the first thing he taught her how to play.
Yeah.
And the lyrics of that song, if I ever were to lose you, I'd surely lose myself.
Yep.
Right? Like, very much, this is Joel's way of saying, you are giving my life meaning.
Yeah.
And I think...
Yep.
I really think that, like, Ellie clearly has this identity crisis of her life she doesn't know what, like, she doesn't have anything, she feels like she doesn't have anything to give her life meaning because she doesn't know why she's immune. And did you play the DLC for the first game? You played that, right?
I played part of it. I didn't finish.
Because you see the end of the DLC is her sitting there with her best friend, and her best friend saying we'll be all poetic and lose our minds together. And then it ends, and the very obviously, like, hinted towards thing is Ellie had to sit there and watch her friend turn and kill her friend in order to get out of that situation.
Yeah, because the friend turns into a zombie.
Yes,
and
that's
she's immune.
like-
Yeah.
And I'll point out, I played the DLC, and the whole time I was like, it's very clear that this is going
Yes,
to end with
yes,
her,
that's
her,
what
her
it's
getting
leading
bit,
to.
You're gonna
her
die.
friend getting bit, her friend dying, and
Yeah,
her living.
which, by the way, when you go back and play it and Tess is like, so how'd you get bit? She's like, at a mall. She straight up says that in the game. But anyways, so to me, what I think is amazing is Ellie, I think after losing Joel, is so stuck up on that Joel was the thing that gave her life meaning that she relentlessly pursues that revenge to try to give her life meaning. She's trying to make her life mean something. Like, maybe my immunity couldn't save everybody, but me avenging Joel is something I can do, right?
Yeah.
Even if I die doing it, it's still giving my life for something that's worth something in her head.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
she gives up on that. She goes and has this awesome life with Dina, and but she still is so stuck on the Joel thing that she goes. And so to me, the thing that is the most heartbreaking part of the game is her not being able to play the guitar. And to me, I think that's the moment that Ellie realizes my life did mean something, and I threw it all away to pursue this petty revenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the game really does raise the question, like, what gives life meaning? It's what you choose to allow to give your life meaning.
Yeah.
And I think that's the point that Ellie was missing, is she wasn't choosing to allow the good things she had to give her life meaning, because
And she
granted,
learned the hard
it's
way.
not her fault. She had PTSD and a whole lot of stuff going on. Like, I get that. There's a whole lot more moving pieces to it, but that's
Yeah.
what I really think that the message of the game was.
Yeah, no. I guess I definitely see that. I guess her resolution was the family she had, and then the game ends with her throwing it away rather than actually getting to the resolution like everybody else's story did. So she had another step. So that also, never mind. We won't get into that.
Well, it's yeah.
I also want to point out that, like, and I think it's an important part of that is she threw that part of her life away to finish that revenge, and she couldn't even do it.
Yeah, I was about to say
She
that's...
had every opportunity. She could have just shot Abby. She didn't have to take her down from the pole at all. She decided she wanted to have a fair fight. She didn't have to choose that. And then she won that fair fight, had her under the water, had her dead. She was going to die, and let her go.
And I think the key there is
Why?
you have the flashback to her talk with Joel the night before he died.
Yeah.
And I think that was her realizing, this revenge won't give my life meaning.
Well,
And
Go ahead,
Go ahead.
Tanner.
no, okay.
you haven't talked at all, so go ahead.
Cool. I just, like, I've always been, like, I've said for a while, like, I said this as a missionary, like, when I was teaching people, that, like, part of the reason why, like, you're not held accountable anymore for, like, the things that you've done after you've repented is because the point of repentance is to change you. So it's, like, I can't be held accountable for those things anymore because I'm not the same person that did those things. Which is a really positive take. Is this still recording?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. But, like, I kind of had sort of in that same line of thought, like, Ellie was this person that was just living a normal teenage life in Jackson. That was mostly safe, you know, and obviously you still have your
As
zombie...
safe as you could be.
Yeah, you
Safe
still
as
have
you
your
could.
zombie encounters, but she's like, has, like, dating life drama. Like, that's, like, not something that is associated with the zombie apocalypse. And then this horrible thing happens, Joel dies, and then as she goes through, and she really kind of there's like some moments that are like really big, like when she kills Owen
And Mel.
And kills Mel.
and realizes after killing Mel that Mel is pregnant, like extremely pregnant, and she's like vomiting, just like, oh my gosh, like what have I done?
Can I just interject
It's like-
here real quick?
Sure.
I hate that people are like, Elle is so despicable. She killed a pregnant person. I'm like, she didn't know. Mel attacked her.
Dude, Mel attacked her. I mean,
It was
yeah.
self-defense.
It's
It's
horrible.
terrible, but it's not like she was like, "Oh, I'm gonna murder a pregnant woman." It was
You know-
she
yeah.
saved
you know-
herself and then was like, "Oh, what have
Do you
I
know
done?"
who was Abby? When she told her Dina was pregnant and she said good and
Yeah.
was about to slit her throat.
That's
and
true.
Les stopped
Yeah.
her. I'll point out, if we're going to get on somebody's case about
Abby's
it,
stone cold.
Abby is a much worse position. So if
Abby
you want
was
to
gonna-
argue that first before dissing Ellie for that. Okay,
Yeah.
go on.
Well,
Tanner.
there's an argument to be made there that she was just doing that because Ellie did the exact same
was
thing
pure
to her
revenge.
pregnant
It was
friend.
pure-
She's like, okay, cool,
And
you killed my pregnant friend,
she
I'll
didn't
kill
know
yours.
the story about it either. Like, she obviously wasn't there.
Yeah.
Didn't know it was
She doesn't know
self-defense.
what went down. All she knows is that
is
Abby
she
stabbed her.
Right, right.
At any rate,
Sorry.
or Elle stabbed her. As she goes through this process of trying to get revenge, and she does that, and like she beats one of her friends to death with like a
Nora.
metal pipe.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
In the dark,
it's just
scary
like, and
basement.
then of course, you know, it's one of these rare games that has you mow down faceless mobs and then like actually makes it have an effect on the character, where I feel like to the point she gets to the end of this journey and she's holding Abby down like under the waves and like choking her and she can't breathe, and then like has this flashback to Joel like the day before he dies, and then kind of realizes like it doesn't even really matter anymore because like the person that loved Joel and that was doing this out of a need for revenge and like grief is like gone because she's just been so desensitized by like all of the horrible things that she's done that it doesn't really matter to her anymore, because not only will
Yeah.
killing Abby not bring Joel back, but it won't even bring her closure anymore because she's
Interesting.
just had so much violence
Yeah.
that she's experienced and also dished out. And it's important to note too, like we said, like this game is horrifying violence. Like,
Yeah.
First
You-
time I
you're
shot a
mowing
dude in
down-
the face with a shotgun, I apologize to the NPC.
yeah, exactly. Like it's
It's rough.
super gross. It's like a really realistic take on what it would be like to be like a one-man army that's running around and shooting people. Like,
Well, the violence is
the
realistic.
violence is anyways. Yeah, like obviously
That's like-
if you get shot, like yeah,
You're not
you
gonna
die.
one-man army
You're not
it.
gonna one-man
The amount
army
of
it.
bandages on your wrists is going to help that.
But the point is, it reminds you
spleen.
frequently that the people
All
that
better.
yeah, really, it reminds you that the people that you're killing are actually like people in this world.
Yeah, especially because you go through and kill all of Abby's friends,
Yeah.
and then you go experience Abby's stories, and you see all your friends get picked off.
Yeah,
You see them, you see how they function within society, you have a relationship with them.
Yeah, and you see
kind
that
of
they're good
see
people.
Why Abby is so dang ticked at Ellie when she meets her at the theater is that you just killed all of my friends.
yeah. So that's like, I guess my kind of take on it was, she kind of realizes at the end of this journey that maybe not even consciously, but she just is like, this isn't even worth it. And I think
Yeah.
she, like Jared, like you said, like Joel has his full arc of dealing with grief, and then Abby has her full arc. I think you saw Ellie start her arc of dealing with grief and then end it basically where Joel was at the beginning of the first Last of Us. Because if you think about it, like at the
Fair.
beginning of the first Last of Us, Joel did have somebody after his daughter died. He had Tommy, and eventually him and Tommy split because Tommy was disgusted by the things that Joel was doing to keep them alive.
Yeah.
They had this big argument about it in the first game. He's
Yeah.
like, yeah, remember this happens in the first game. He's like,
Yeah.
I was keeping us alive, and he's like, you were like committing atrocities and war crimes. Like, atrocities. Yes.
I trust you.
Yeah. He's like doing all these horrible things to try and keep them alive, and then
we
that's
were
the
surviving,
exact same.
but we weren't living.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like, I needed to leave because you were just being too dark. This was weighing on me, and I needed to go somewhere and find a reason to live again. And the exact same thing happens with Dina. Like, Dina's
Oh,
kind
I
of
thought
like
about that.
yeah, Dina's like, don't do, like they go through this whole revenge thing, and Dina's trying to be by her side this whole time because
She didn't want her to go though in the first place.
That's true, but she knows it's important to her, so she goes with her, and then it ends horribly. Like the father of her child gets shot in the face,
Right in the face.
gets a big old hole poked through his face, and then she almost dies. They all almost die. The only reason they even live at all is because Abby shows some compassion again and says, "Fine, I'll let you live." And then, Ellie comes back, and Tommy finds out where she is. Ellie leaves. And then Dina. There's consequences for that. Dina's like, "I can't be around you anymore if you're going to keep on doing this."
Yeah.
And she's gone.
And funny enough, something you said about that really hit me was, the fact that while she's about to kill Abby, she has that flashback of Joel saying, "I have purpose in my life again." Funny enough, she probably saw herself after killing Abby being in the exact same position Joel was when he found her, which is she had just done all these atrocities. She was willing to do terrible things that Joel did to get to her means.
I really don't think Ellie was thinking that much.
Well, I don't think it was that conscious, but I think eventually she realized.
My point is there's a parallel there. She gave up
There's for sure a parallel.
everything. She gave up everything and did the terrible thing. Like, she used the example of, you point to where Abby is, and then I'll ask you, and if it's different, I'll kill her. Like, he literally did that to Owen and What's-Her-Face. Like, she was doing what Joel was doing during The Last of Us 1, before The Last of Us 1. Those terrible things Tommy left her for,
yeah.
That's what she was doing to get to these ends.
I love Joel.
And it's like, through that process was becoming, like, the bad side of Joel that she didn't like. The side that she saw melt away as he became better. So, like, in a way, she saw herself becoming exactly what Joel didn't want her to become if she were to kill her.
I don't even think she had that much
I'm
clarity.
just saying, that's just something I saw there, that there's a parallel that as watching it as, I don't think she
It's
thought
a
about
parallel.
it too much.
It's for sure a parallel. I don't think Ellie had that kind of consciousness.
Yeah,
I think there was a lot more to
in the
honestly.
moment, she thinks that her last memory of Joel was a good memory. That they were trying to reconcile this relationship that was ruined by a horrible thing that she had done.
Being a better person.
Yes, and that he was being a better person, and was like, "What's the point?
Maybe I should be a little better too."
Like, maybe I should try to be."
I
like that.
Joel.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, the Joel that I knew the day before he died would not have wanted me to be doing this.
Because he went through that and got over it.
And that's something that I think she probably could have at least consciously thought, is he wouldn't want me to be doing this anymore.
Yeah, maybe.
At
It's
the end
very
of the day,
interesting. You can take it a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
So,
thought-provoking.
at the end of the day,
Sure.
very thought-provoking,
Yeah.
very good. Hopefully there's a part 3. I would love that.
There's no part to this.
I don't think there would be.
I would love to see
I would
the
love
Last
it, but
of
I'd
Us
be
franchise.
okay with it not.
Here's the thing.
I would love to see more of The Last of Us, but maybe not their story.
I would like to see. I would gladly see different characters in that same world
Yeah.
Yeah.
because it is so. All right, we're transitioning now. It is the best looking game I have ever
It's a
played.
good-looking game.
It's pretty sexy.
Oh my gosh!
When you're not having to sort through the filth and you just have those moments to enjoy the world, it is a very pretty world.
Like there are so many
And
moments where
Ignore
they're
that
just,
corpse, ignore that
No,
guy you just...
I will say right off the bat, it does make sense in context too that it is beautiful, because it's not like the whole game is in Seattle, right?
right.
Of course, it's
It doesn't have the Salt Lake problem.
It's not Salt Lake where you got vines everywhere, and it's like, no, this is a desert.
Giraffes, please.
You're trying to tell me that the sprinklers are still working here?
Yeah, come on.
We're in a drought right now, and it's not even that green here, and we're still watering stuff. It's
Yeah.
never going to be that green. No, yeah, absolutely. I really okay, because the first game is an amazing looking game too.
It is.
Still to this day, I cannot believe that game was on a PlayStation 3. Especially, go look at other games that came out that year.
It looks really good next to him, for sure.
It's top of the line.
Absolute witchcraft what Naughty Dog does with their game engine. They are for sure sacrificing virgin interns to get their game engine to run the way it does, because just holy crap. But yeah, the second game is I think
Pretty.
that is what, when I start thinking about playing The Last of Us 2 again, it almost always stems from just being able to be in those environments and just looking at them, because it is just astounding. I do not understand. Okay, I don't have a PlayStation 4 Pro, okay? We got the basic PS4, 1080p, 30 FPS tops. I do not, and then I have an Xbox One X. So I've played games in 4K HDR at 60 FPS. Right, Doom Eternal just finished those DLCs.
Great
Ran
game,
a
by the way.
solid 60 FPS.
Give me one word to describe the DLCs.
I can't pick just one. It's knucking futz. It's probably the
Okay,
biggest
there
thing.
you go.
It's like the two words I'm thinking of is rip and tear, but okay.
No, we can get to that in a second.
I haven't played them.
I
yet, so we
I just can't get over how good the game looks, even on just the basic PlayStation 4.
Yeah.
It is just incredible what
That's
they
good.
were able to do.
It's a good looking game.
Those perfectionists at Naughty Dog just...
You want to know my
They're doing
big-
good work. They're
you wanna
doing the
know
Lord's work out
The
here.
biggest problem I had with The Last of Us 2, and this is saying something. The biggest problem I had is that there were that many gun parts in Seattle, Washington. That's the only problem I had.
Hey, it's that many gun parts. To be fair, in Seattle, where there was already a military occupation and there was a war fought.
But you know when you go into somebody's bedroom and you open up their safe and there's gun parts in there?
It's like, not in this town, not in this state.
city. I was like, well, if this was set in San Antonio, Texas, maybe, but
My favorite,
Seattle.
my favorite part of
locked
that,
away through this whole
That was
pandemic.
funny.
my
That was
favorite
good.
part of that is you'll replace an entire barrel.
Oh,
And it's
yeah.
like I have gun parts laying around my room. I do not have like what's laying around my room. It's like pistol grips. It's like basic cosmetic, more comfort stuff as opposed to the functional parts of a gun laying around. So that's
Yeah.
what I think is funny.
I also think it's funny that it's like, yeah, go grab this many pieces of metal, and now you have enough to put together a.
Yeah, it's like, is she like a gunsmith?
In the
Yeah,
first
like, what
game,
the heck is
in
she,
the
like,
first game,
smelting
it's
the
straight up
metal
just
down?
like gears
Baller.
and nuts and bolts. In the second game, it actually you do see you can look
You
there.
see
It's like
magazine parts.
it's like
Yeah.
magazine part. There actually are gun parts laying around
does.
in the second game. But
You know what I thought I just had?
yes,
It's that Joel doesn't play guitar at all in the first game.
but
No,
he
he
talks about it.
He does talk about it,
Talks
but
about
he talks about how he used to.
Yeah.
But that was back before, the grief and the
When he
horror
wanted
and
to be a
stuff. And the
musician.
last thing Ellie does is leave the guitar.
Yeah, and that's something that
Oof.
when thinking about the grief and stuff that I talked about, is it's like she realized that the memory of Joel put her to the point that she was at, and
Oof.
she left the guitar because she didn't want to take Joel with her in a way, because of what it brought out in her, thinking about what she wanted to do to Abby because of the relationship we had with Joel. She had to forget about it, or that would plague her the rest of her life. That's one
Dang.
thing I got out of it.
That's a good thought. 'Cause that's what Donkey says too. You remember that? Shout out to video game Donkey.
I watched so many of them.
He,
I
like-
don't remember who said what.
Well, like at
anymore.
the end of one of the things, he's like, because like the last thing that Ellie says to Abby is, "Go, just take him."
Yeah.
Like, and she's like, and when he says that, I don't think she's talking about Lev.
Oh, that's right.
Like, take the memory of Joel with
Like,
you.
yeah, just take him because I don't want to deal with this
Yeah, that's fair.
anymore.
Oof.
I watched an analysis.
Hey, just like I said about
This
the
is
first
really
game.
funny.
Oof.
I watched an analysis where the guy had the audacity to spend an hour rewriting the game, which made me really upset because if you are going to criticize something, you need to criticize it from the based on what the intended purpose of the work is, not what you wanted it to be.
Yeah, and that's something I had a question about. 'cause
And
we
you know
talked
who
about-
said that?
That's a
Brandon Sanderson.
Ooh,
That is a Brandon Sanderson
that's the
quote.
god of nerds right now.
Yeah. So it made me mad, but it was funny because my friend sent me the video to watch it, and I was watching it. You don't know who Brando Sando is? Are you a member of this family?
I was gonna say, the name isn't sparking a thought. Like, what do I know?
He's the guy
him
that
from?
finished the Wheel of Time series after Robert Jordan died.
Oh.
He's
okay.
like,
And he's
a
written
huge
so many.
name. In
I'll show you the
fiction.
Wikipedia
Okay,
page after
okay,
this.
I
That
do
man
know who
poops
that
out
is.
art like 3 times a year.
I-
Like he does.
I didn't recognize the
he
name.
stands up. Hey, a fantasy novel.
Yeah, he's great. And he's a really good author, and he works at BYU. He's
Yeah,
a
he's an
professor at
incredible
BYU.
author.
Oh, I actually. Okay.
He teaches creative writing.
yeah.
Yeah.
I know exactly who
Okay,
you're talking about. Now.
anyways.
I'm sorry, the
Yeah,
name
yeah,
just
yeah.
didn't.
So anyways,
name
so it made
recognition.
me laugh. This is coming full circle to what we were talking about before.
Wait, did he say that about this game?
No.
Oh,
One,
okay.
no.
Woo,
So,
okay. I
so
was like, dude,
a different
baller.
my favorite review of the game that I've seen. The guy started it with that,
Okay.
and the first thing he said was, "I don't necessarily like The Last of Us Part 2, but that doesn't mean it's not a good game." And then he used that Brandon Sanderson quote
It's
to
very
back
good.
that point up. The other guy who had the audacity to rewrite the whole thing, his biggest criticism was the structure of the game, how you go from Ellie half the game to Abby half the game.
So
And my
good.
favorite part of it, my favorite part of that movie, this guy who like I've
The review.
looked at his other YouTube channel. He's like an author, a writer, right? So he talks about writing standpoint of the review of the game, which also that other guy who did use the Brando Sando quote,
Also, right.
much better writer in my opinion,
Get wrecked.
based on the stuff that I've seen of his videos versus this other guy's. But
Continue.
he was talking about his comparison. He was like, you need to not structure them like this, because you have a climax point and then that rising action drops, and then you have another climax point where it finally all comes together. And this, he's like, it's a real roller coaster of whatever. And then he goes and he's like, he's like, imagine if Lord of the Rings was written like this. And I literally am sitting here and I'm like,
It is!
you are claiming to be someone who reads books and writes books? The Lord of the Rings is literally written like this. The second and third books both do the same thing.
That is exactly what Lord of the Rings is. That is such a...
I know.
That's hilarious.
I
Wow.
seriously,
wow.
he said that and I was just like,
Not listening to you.
I can't finish this review. I
Yeah.
can't finish this. Like, I can't finish it. I can't take you seriously after this. You're claiming to be like a writer and you clearly haven't read Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. And, like, I will say, I respect people that have that opinion that they say, I don't like this, but it is still good.
Yeah.
Because, like, I remember you and I, you used to do this thing all the time that really pissed me off,
Where are we going with this?
where we'd talk about Batman.
Which thing?
And you would be like, The Dark Knight is a terrible movie. And I was like, oh my gosh, you didn't like The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight is an amazing movie. And, like, I understand and I respect your opinion on it because it's more nuanced than it just sucks. But I
Right.
hate it.
And I have...
It's like
And
my
I have
biggest
learned,
pet peeve when people do this about anything.
I've learned to phrase that differently.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why it just pisses people off
Because
when they do
as-
that. When they're
and
like, "This
be-
sucks balls," I'm
Because
like, no!
as I have grown as a nerd and watched more movies and stuff, I can acknowledge The Dark Knight is a very well made. It is a good movie
It's a great. Movie.
I don't
great
like it.
movie.
for my own reasons.
The way I
that we're
always
not
put
getting
it
into right
is
now.
I
we're
always-
not.
Yeah, we'll start a movie podcast if we want to, but we'll talk about it now. But I always just say that The Dark Knight is not so much a Batman movie. Like it is a movie. Like if you try not to think, if you try to separate it as like this is a superhero movie,
That's a good-
there's a
that's a
lot
good
of
take.
stuff to get out of The Dark Knight.
That's a decent take. I like that.
Because like that's what I told my
I'll
wife
chew on
when I
that.
was convincing her to watch it, and she was like, "It's definitely a Batman movie." I'm like, "No, if you still think this is a Batman movie, you're not watching it right." Like,
Because
there's just so
hot
many.
take, my favorite and in my opinion the best iteration of Batman is the Arkham games.
that's not
well,
a hot take.
That's
That's straight up
That's
factual.
straight fact. Yeah, you've got some support.
In this room,
In
it
this
is.
room.
I'm just saying hot take in case someone out there is like, "What?
So I guess
You clearly haven't played the game."
I know that you had a question that you were asking earlier, like right at the beginning when I was going to give my synopsis of how I felt about all this. You had a question to ask.
Well, I just asked what you thought about them killing Joel at the beginning. I think we kind of well
Okay.
established.
I
that
think we pretty much
narratively
covered
was
all the
great.
bases we need to on this game.
I think we have on the last of this
Yeah.
too. Yeah, like I really enjoy it. A really good game. Lots of different good stuff in there. It's definitely one of those games though that's really good to just like even as we're talking about it now, I'm still thinking about it.
Yeah. It's
Um,
worth noting that there are a ton of haters, and I think that alone kind of actually makes it worth looking into.
Yeah.
See, and
'Cause,
that's,
like-
that's what that's
That's
why
what
I
I
felt
wanted
the
to
need to bring
ask,
up the
yeah.
Brandon Sanderson quote, because I believe the people who hated the game, it's because they didn't. It wasn't what they
wasn't what
wanted
they
it
wanted.
to be.
That's what I was
Yeah.
going to ask. When you always say that, is there something that people have specifically said that they wanted it to
They
be?
just wanted Joel in it more. They were like, why was Joel being sold as like the main character of this game, and then an hour into the game, Joel gets golfed. Yep, 4. But that's... Well, there were other reasons too, and a lot of people...
Oh, that's...
I don't really want to get into the
'Cause-
the politics of it, but a lot
We're
of
not
people
going to get
did
into
not like it.
transphobia,
Yes.
homophobia, and all that nonsense.
Like, whatever.
And yeah, a lot, and that was the problem, was like all the criticism of it, and all the hate that it got, like you on the
Well,
Metacritic reviews, it's basically that.
the
It's like
biggest-
not nuanced.
the
It's
biggest-
just that it wasn't what they
The
wanted.
biggest problem is this was all stuff that got leaked beforehand.
That's true.
I
too.
really think if that stuff hadn't been leaked and people experienced it the way it was intended,
That's
unknown,
true.
it'd be a much different effect.
Here's the problem I have with that, though. Like, and I guess
That's true.
you guys both agree with me on this, so it's not like a problem. But like, like how can you say like I wanted it to have more Joel? Like, Joel was great and all. Liked Joel, fun character, great to see that character development and everything. But I can't think of another direction I would have wanted this game to go. Like, again, I feel like the themes are so tied that you can't really tell a story about Ellie and her grief without losing Joel, because she's all he has.
No, I completely agree. They sold this game as a story that was supposed to be about revenge. Like,
Dude, the
going
official like
into it,
synopsis
it's
was
just-
like it's a revenge quest from. I knew.
Yeah.
I kind of figured Joel was gonna die. I didn't think he would die so soon, but I did kind of assume he was gonna. Because why else would Ellie be the
yeah,
protagonist
exactly.
of the game?
Well,
That's-
and
that's
what
my
else
point.
would even drive her to revenge? Like, at this point,
Again,
if the
she
same thing had
has
happened to
nothing else.
Dina, I don't think it would have been as intense of a revenge
Okay,
story.
here's the thing.
Partially because she probably would have had Joel to rein her in.
If somebody
Or
killed Dina and they were...
Joel and Ellie revenge quest,
Yeah, but eventually...
which would be fun.
Here's my point, though. They did not have as developed of
Sure.
a relationship enough to travel across... Like, okay, have you ever walked from Wyoming to Seattle or ridden a horse? It ain't an easy journey. You ain't gonna do that for your boo
Did you
you've
read the
known for
journal
4
entries?
months.
And you're not going to do it through the zombie apocalypse very
Absolutely
easily
not.
either.
My point is, if they were a town over, if it was like a day's journey, and it was your girlfriend and you were sad about it, sure, maybe you'll go get some...
Did you read all the journal entries?
I read some of it.
Because if you go back in the flashbacks too, it talks about her friendship with Dina from the very beginning.
Yeah, well,
It's
like,
fine,
I'm
but
not
they
saying
haven't-
that Dina wasn't important to her. It's just she wasn't like the father figure.
That's what I'm
Right.
saying.
I just don't think it would have had the same drive.
I don't think after what and seeing
It
as
couldn't
it's
have
a,
worked if it wasn't Joel.
it's a part 2 of the first game.
Yeah.
If she's going to be on a revenge quest, it's not going to be for somebody she met at the beginning of the second game.
Oh yeah, no.
She has a
Ooh.
history with Joel.
Good
Joel
point.
is the only person she really has as a rock in her life. And what do you do when you take somebody's rock? They're
Oh yeah, no.
pissed.
I kind of
Yeah.
always suspected Joel was gonna die.
They're, and that's my point. When we talked about this and we were like, what about golf? I already knew Joel was dead.
It's so funny.
I'm not an idiot. Ellie is the protagonist of the game. There is no reason... Like, they're not going to make it so you play as Ellie and Joel is your follower. Like, no!
Yeah, that would
Joel is dead, comatose, or kidnapped, okay? Like, that's not even a question. And if you think he should have been in that game, I'm
right.
sorry, you're wrong. Like, she would not have gone on a revenge quest of any type, of any sort, if it
Yeah.
hadn't been Joel. There's
If
no
you
other
think
character.
if you think Joel should have been in the game, you need to take a step back and realize it's not your story to write.
Exactly.
It's Neil Druckmann's.
Hey, if you want
Well, and
Joel in
that
your
too,
game, go
but-
play The Last of Us 1 again.
Look.
Okay? There's
yeah,
your Joel.
and if you really think for a second Joel was going to get kidnapped or something, no.
No, they're
You can't
no
keep that
kidnap.
man prisoner.
No,
Are you
they
kidding?
tried. They
Joel
held an
is
M16
terrifying.
to that man's face.
Joel
and what he
rolled
did, he
out of
ripped it out of
Joel
that guy's
rolled
hands and
out
killed
of a
everyone.
coma and murdered a village of cannibals to save Ellie. You really
Yeah,
think you
like
can keep
that.
him prisoner?
Yeah, no, he was
Yeah.
lethal. There was no way, and I agree. Yeah,
All he needs is a brick.
the game has its
Dreams.
criticisms, and I will listen to criticisms that are I don't like it, and here's why. As long as they're more nuanced than because they made me play as a trans person, like. It's like, okay,
Okay, here's the
it's a
deal.
video game.
Outside of Abby being trans,
Who
I
cares?
totally get why you wouldn't like Abby. Here's the thing: the first time,
Oh, yeah, she killed Joel.
The first time I played the game, what I think is so fascinating.
I didn't realize that Abby was trans. I just knew the Lev was.
I don't know what qualifies as trans well enough to get into this conversation.
The point is, they're all ambiguous. I think.
I didn't catch any, like, okay, I'll say this.
But that
in
was
the
what
first
pissed
game, it was
people
clear
off,
to me
and-
that Ellie was gay. Like, it was brought up. Like, and people were pissed about that as well, and I think it's dumb. It was definitely
Yeah, it's just super.
alluded to in the first game.
Yeah, for sure.
All I'm saying is I usually am good at picking up on that kind of thing. I ain't saying I got a perfect gaydar, but, like, I usually can tell in a game
Mine's
when they're
pretty
trying to
darn
point
good.
it to that. And I was like, oh, Lev is clearly... They made it very clear that Lev was transgender. But, like,
Sure.
I never got those nuanced clues about Abby, really.
I genuinely don't. I don't know.
I mean,
I don't know.
she had a mannish, like, shoulders and
she
stuff.
was
but, like,
beefy.
whatever. She was beefy.
man-ish.
Well, I'm
Are
just
you
saying,
kidding me?
dude.
I'm saying,
Abby's got a
Abby-
manlier physique than I ever will.
Abby
My-
is swole.
My
Yeah.
point is, yes, her swollenness
Ben
definitely
Swallow,
looked-
Abby Swallow.
Dude, Abby was goals.
That's what I'm
Abby
saying.
was
Is
ripped.
her swollenness was definitely something that I was like, that's not usually the type of swollenness you
Well,
see
you
on
just
a woman.
need to
but, like,
Sure.
steer away from this.
I know.
I don't like Abby because she killed Joel. Originally,
Yeah, I mean,
I
like-
hated. I was like, "You really gonna make me play as Abby for all this time?" But I think you're supposed to feel that,
Yeah,
and I actually do genuinely like Abby as a character
I
Yeah.
do too.
after playing it a second
You
time.
grow to like her, especially after you spend a mile in
Yeah.
her shoes.
That's something really great that they did is like you hate Abby this whole time. She's just killed Joel. You've killed all her friends, but then she just shot your buddy in the face and everything. You don't like Abby.
Did you pick up on why they named their baby JJ?
Is it named after Joel and
Jesse Joel.
Jesse? Oh.
Or Joel Jesse. I don't know which order, but that's clearly
Oh,
what it is.
That's
I
so
didn't know that.
sad. I hadn't even thought about that.
No, I
I
hadn't
thought about it the first time. It made me cry.
That's so sad.
My point is, I liked being able to be like, oh, this is where she's coming from. Because it almost made you feel like, well, crap, she did something terrible.
Yeah,
It's
no,
out of
no.
revenge, but you understand. And I think that was a really good thing for them to do.
Well, it's
So
like-
if you have complaints about that, go...
Look, and like,
Like,
I mean, we could talk about this for hours.
We've
We
literally
already
talked
have
about this for an
talked about
hour.
this
We
for
were
an hour.
worried about not being able to talk about this
Yeah.
for long enough.
And like
That's
this
good.
kind of goes into something that we had as a topic for later video games, but I really like when a video game is like kind of meta about some of the classic video game tropes. Kind of like Death Stranding said it was going to do and then did horribly.
please
Um,
elaborate, because I'm...
Like
Give me an example.
like there's like this classic trope of like in video games you're a one-man army that plows through an army of like hundreds of dudes. This is every Call of Duty game, and it's like there's no consequences because you're shooting like faceless Russians
And if you get
and
shot...
you're trying to save
Oh.
America or whatever, so like everything you do is fair game. Or you're killing demons, so everything you do is fair game.
Well,
Because
that
they're literal
is.
army. It's the army of Satan. Like, of course I'm going to treat them horribly. That's fair.
I was gonna say, I don't think Doom's much trope.
No, well, Doom is Doom, and I could talk about Doom for a long
Tune in
time.
next time for our
I
Doom podcast.
Love Doom. Doom is one of my favorite games,
I have a lot of
period.
thoughts about the end of the DLCs to that, by the way.
Well, I'm going to play them soon, and maybe we'll do that next.
Yeah, we could talk about that. Oh my gosh. What was I getting at?
what's
But what
the
I was
trope?
getting
Yeah.
at was like just that often video games have you do a lot of super violent stuff. And it
Not a
doesn't
lot of consequences.
yeah, there's not a lot of consequences, and it doesn't affect the
Your character.
person as much
And the
as
story.
and the story as much as it realistically should. The Last of Us 2 did a
does.
very, very good job at that, and
That's true.
I don't remember why I thought that. It was something that you said. But it was
Because of
like-
all her friends who die.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
because
And then you see the effects of all these people that you went after and killed as Ellie.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
think that's what you were getting at, right?
yes, that's mostly what I was
It
getting
puts
at.
a face to
And I just think that's great. Well, and
And that's
it
an
just
interesting
makes
thing.
Abby great too, because you see Abby do this horrible thing, and then you're reminded as you play as Abby that she's a person too.
Here's the society that they've built.
Yeah,
and she
like
has
she's
relationships
not
with
just
people.
the villain. Like she's
I
a
would actually
person.
I would argue that Ellie's more of a villain in the game.
Oh, she
overall.
absolutely
Oh
is.
yeah,
I would argue that what Abby does to Jesse and Tommy and all them is more justified than what she did to Joel.
well
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Because if
Absolutely.
she had just killed Joel and walk away, I'd probably feel a little bit like the slow kill was what it was overkill, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. It was super violent.
But her the just taking down Jesse and then shooting Tommy's eye out, like I think that was perfectly justified after what Ellie did to all
By
her
the way,
friends.
she shoots Tommy's eye out through the back of his head. Tommy should be dead, but
No.
we'll talk about that later.
No, I'll tell you right now. My wife is a psychology major, and she studied a lot of people with lots of traumatic brain injuries. And the thing, your brain and what it can survive is completely dependent
Okay.
on you.
Hey, in Doctor Strange, they pull a bullet out of that dudede's brain.
Yeah,
Nice.
in Doctor
Well-
Strange, they're in New York City. They're not in the zombie apocalypse
just
with
saying.
rusty
My
scalpels.
point is, with his situation, I would when he got shot, I thought he was dead.
My
I was like, Tommy's
assumption,
dead. I'm
my
it was
sad
just
about
funny.
it.
That's all.
my assumption is that it grazed him.
Sure.
It looks like it did go through his skull.
It just
and
made
went
me
out
laugh.
his eye. But if it's hitting,
No, yeah,
You-
I
you'd
thought
be okay.
Tommy was dead.
It just
too.
made me laugh.
And then he shows up hobbling in with one eyeball. And
Yeah, you're like, dog, how did you, what?
yeah, when that happened, I was like,
why don't you
oh.
give a little bit of that mojo to Joel? That was bad.
Anyways,
Yeah, Joel hobbles
Yeah,
back
we
in
should
with a
stop
5
this.
iron
All right,
sticking
so
out of the side of his head.
We're gonna be
What's
done.
up, guys?
We're gonna be done.
Yeah.
Okay, so played the Doom Eternal Ancient Gods Part 2.
I will.
That'll take you 4 or 5 hours. We can talk about that. And then
depending
next
on whether you're good or not.
next on Jared's list, it's tough. They rebalanced all the DLCs after they released Ancient Gods Part 2.
I
Right?
wish they hadn't, because honestly...
No,
playing-
because the
Ancient
problem
Gods
was
1 was
Ancient Gods
so
Part 1 was
hard.
insane. Like,
Yeah,
if-
but I loved it!
no, they literally mapped out the difficulty. You had Doom Eternal, Ancient Gods Part 1, Ancient Gods Part 2.
Oh.
So they mapped it out so it's
Well, that makes
more of a
sense,
solid increase
because-
through the
okay.
entirety of the
Well,
game.
here's what I
I
could
guess that
say.
makes sense.
It was fun, but it was also I lost some of the fun because of just how difficult and the arena.
One of the things they
so it was
changed,
like-
you know how the turret, you had like a third of a second to shoot a turret?
Yeah.
And then it would not pop up if you were looking anywhere remotely near it. They changed it so they will pop up on a timer, and if you aim, you have like good second before
That's a
they'll
good
duck down.
call.
So
That is a
there
good
was
call,
little
'cause they
tune,
sucked.
little tuning
Oh.
things like that. It's not like an overall. It was like the extreme stuff like
Okay.
that they
Because
fixed.
like what I loved like locking me in a hall that's like 5 feet wide and having a tyrant appear right there. I thought that was baller
dude.
because it terrified me, but
You
I
know
felt
what's
so
intense?
cool when I killed it. But anyways,
You know
You
what's
know
intense?
The end of this episode.
Yeah.
Because we're starting to talk about Doom.
Fighting two
Marauders.
marauders
Yeah.
and a tyrant
Mm-hmm.
at the same time.
No, I remember. I did that. It was
And then two tyrants and a marauder and invisible pinkies. That happens in the second part. The second one's intense, dude.
I love
Well,
it though.
Before we
Anyways.
talk about it too much, because maybe we'll talk about Doom next time. Maybe we'll talk about one of our other
Yeah, we
topics.
should finish this.
We should definitely wrap this up because this will be longer than basically what we've done since the first episode. So,
We're officially over an hour.
oh, look at
Nicely
that.
done.
Well, if you hung out for this, thanks for hanging out and listening to our thoughts. We thought we couldn't talk about The Last of Us
Yeah,
Part
when
2
we
for
talked
an
about this, we
hour.
were like, maybe 15, 20 minutes and we'll talk about this other thing. Hour.
Last of Us Part 2.
Here's our takeaways. It's a good game. We like it. Voodoo is good. I enjoyed
I
it.
don't know if I actually like the voodoo or not, honestly.
Really? I
I'll
thought
take
it
it home
was
with me.
I've had 3 cans of it, but I can't tell you if I actually
Well,
like it.
I'll take
I
it
do.
at home,
I'll
then.
have
I
a,
thought it was
we'll
good.
split them.
Yes.
But yeah,
No, I
thanks
still
for
want the
joining us
caffeine.
for this song. If you're here, just like always, if you have comments or things that we can do better or things we can do different, suggestions, we're open to all of it.
Yeah, we're all
Um,
pretty new to the world of podcasting, obviously, because we're recording this on a phone. And yeah, we like tips, so tell us what your favorite podcasters do, and we'd like to try
Yeah.
and
Or please,
Be better.
like, suggest a topic.
Yeah,
If you have a movie, dude, we'll talk about movies.
we will.
That's basically all
We
we
talked
do
about
when we're
movies for
off
2
it.
hours before we talked about video games.
I could
Like,
talk about any given Marvel film for like probably a solid hour.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Having
Absolutely.
seen like some of them one time, I could probably still
Yeah.
easily do that. So,
So yeah, give us your suggestions and things like that. Also, one really good thing. So I guess what we can look forward to is we might do a Doom one soon. We've got a couple other things we've talked about. We also talked about how we might try to do one for Destiny soon, which I'd like to do, but who knows?
Yeah.
Just in preparation for Witch Queen coming out next year.
we'll probably do Star Wars soon.
We'll probably talk about Star Wars, especially.
Star Wars Legends is fire, guys.
Yeah, check it
I
out. But yeah, thanks for joining us, and this has been us. We didn't do our normal intro where you're the blank one and you're the middle one, and I'm the one that gets stuck with the opposite of
Oh.
whatever Scott says. But
We've only done that once.
this has been
Yeah,
Scott's
do we have an
favorite joke.
outro? What's our outro? I don't know.
Our outro is Happy Birthday to Dark Souls. 10
Aw.
years ago, you graced our consoles with rage and hatred, and I'm sure plenty of broken controllers and screens, but we love and appreciate
Yeah,
you.
happy birthday, Dark Souls.
Happy birthday, Dark Souls.
All right, good night.